Vocalist John Waite has a brand new EP as well as a great new tour coming this summer. But the real question is, will he ever get back with the babies? We'll find out next, right here on CHRIS Akin Presents. It is CHRIS Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and I am joined by somebody that you should recognize a whole lot more than me. That is for sure. He is a long time veteran vocalist. He's had so many hits. There's too many to name, both as a solo artist and with the babies. He is the one, the only, Mr. John Waite. John, how are you, man?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
I am excellent, man. I'm happy to finally do this. Like I was telling you before we started, I've been a fan pretty much my whole life. You know, I'm 53 years old, and I was on board with the babies when the babies came out. So, you know,
that's great. That's really I take that seriously, and I'm very touched. And yeah, thanks a lot. It's been a long, you know, I thought I'd be lucky to make records for like 2, maybe 3 years.
Sure. Just
to get a record deal, you know.
Right.
And, A to B to C to D to E. It just kept coming. And it's been a great life. You know, it's still ongoing. Got a new release out, on tour this summer, playing gigs all the time, you know.
Right. Yeah. Now talk about that a little bit, John. I mean, you've done this forever. You've seen the business completely change, you know, from where you started to where it is now. So what is it about it that keeps you going? Is it just the love of the music, or is it just this is the career you've chosen, or a little bit of both, or what?
It's what I do. You know, I could be like buying groceries or, you know, shaving or whatever, and I'd be thinking of a word against another word, or a different way of looking at something that's kind of mystical almost, without making too much of it. It could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, and it's those phrases that demand you make a song. And the older you get, you see different aspects to life. There's just more you learn as you live, if you're paying attention. And there's just always something new. I mean, and you come across it and you think, I have to record that. I have to write that song. And, you know, it's probably going to keep going till I keel over. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be on the road in 10 years. I shouldn't think so. Okay. But I probably turn more to writing, like short stories and stuff like that. I just like words, and the words kind of come before the music. To initiate an album, you know, it's always that thing where you see life differently and you want to explain that aspect of it.
Sure. And one of the things I know that you've done as well is you've moved into the art realm as well too, have you not?
Oh, yeah, no, I went to art school for 4 years.
Okay.
I've always painted and drawn, and that was the original plan, was to be a painter.
Okay.
And then at some point I realized that I couldn't get it out fast enough. I couldn't express myself fast enough, whereas I could with music. And also when I was at art school, I started my own band. I'd always been in a band because my brother Joe had a band and I sang in it. But I actually played in art school dance with a band that was like, I put together. And the two things were running alongside. But music, you know, music is such a magnet for everything in your life, you know, and it's universal, and it's playing all the time, everywhere, all different sorts of music. And it just seemed I could have a clear shot at making something good if I went to music.
Sure. Is the creative the same between making a painting that you spend, you know, sometimes you can spend months or even years on, versus writing a song that you craft together in a lot shorter of a time?
Well, there's a different thing. There's it's almost like you go into a different state, like you're meditating almost when you're painting. There's a tremendous amount going on that you can't really explain. It's all the end of the pen or the paintbrush. It's all that. With a song, the song is almost bigger than you. It comes in almost fully formed, and you just accept it, and it's actually coming at you. It's coming through the ether. Whereas the painting is that's something else. That's where you're trying to. It's a completely different thing. I mean, look, this is my living room, but I've got if you can see over my shoulder, there's paints and stuff down there, and and bits and pieces that I glue onto the canvas, and it's you know, here's a half finished. This is Jackie Bam Bam, the DJ. I haven't quite finished this baby, but probably give it to him for Christmas or something. But it's a great way to access a different part of yourself, you know. It really is. And when you do something you know is pretty, you know, all right, it's very satisfying.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's satisfying, John. It is this brand new EP that you just put out called Anything. Fantastic. Very, I don't want to say most, because it's hard with a career like yours to say that something is the most of anything. But to me, personally, this is one of the most relatable releases that you've ever done. The words kind of hit me a lot more than a lot of your previous work that seemed a little more universal. You know, this seemed very personal to me. Songs like Grenadine, as an example, came off very, very personal. So tell me a little bit about this. And, you know, after a decade of not really doing new music that you released anyway, what made you decide to come back to it now?
Well, I think, you know, lockdown, probably. I was probably staring at my toes and sitting on the balcony, you know, doing nothing. And I think doing nothing is generally just recharging your batteries. And I really did want to put something out that was positive. I didn't want to, I don't know. It's hard to describe music. It really is. I mean, if I could describe it, I would write it down in a story. But the energy of the songs, Anything, is very, very simple. And Lifeguard is a summer record. It's just a super sexy little song about being by the pool, you know, with your girl, and you know, she looks like $1,000,000 and the sun's shining and everything's okay. So it's kind of new for me, that territory, really. And Grenadine was recorded live in the studio as me and Anthony wrote it. Anthony CHRIS AKIN, an old friend of mine, co-writer, collaborator. And that's just me and him playing like at 8 at night, you know, a glass of wine, whatever, the day's done, you've written the songs. And Grenadine came out. And what else? We got Darling, which is a take on, it's, you know, it's about the model world and France and destruction, self-destruction, maybe. But it's a very long song. It's and I spent a lot of time on that. If you download off iTunes or you stream it, there's Masters of War, the Dylan song, on the end. I was very shocked and dismayed about what's going on in the Ukraine. And I thought it was a timely song. I thought the fact that I'd heard it first when I was 14, it disturbed me very much. But it's still relevant, you know. It really did. The words are cutting, you know. Dylan at his absolute most angry. And I wanted to record that. And so people would hear the words, you know. So, but like, you know, an artist can stand still for a while and you're looking around you and you're just taking in information. You could be looking inside and you're still taking in information. Every day is different. And eventually it comes out as music, as art, you know.
Right on. Now, when you go into writing something, John, and this goes pretty much through your whole career, I guess I'm asking. Do you try to write from a personal experience, or do you try to avoid the personal experiences and try to create more that everybody can feel?
Well, no, I know what you're saying. it would be glib. I mean, somebody like The Baby's Back on My Feet Again, I wrote that lyric to sort of like, you know, we're going forward, you know,
Sure.
back on my feet again. And it's very simple. It's not high art and sort of like poetry, you know, it's not. But it's that thing I was saying before. It speaks to millions of people. And the trick is to put depth into something that isn't hiding. You know, it's there without being obvious. You respect the audience, as Tom Petty said, because they know. The audience really know. And if you're going to put out junk that's just like pop, simple, you know, I love you, you love me, life is great, can't you see? Swinging times for you and me. Love is really beautiful. You know, it's like,
right.
You know, but all of my songs are personal. I've never sat down to write for the charts, you know. You hope you have a hook in there somewhere. You hope that people are going to understand it. But I think the reason I'm still having this conversation with you now, after all these years, is I've always written from a personal place. And maybe that was the charm of it. The Babies were a two-fisted swinging rock band.
Right.
And I was writing personal lyrics on top of that. So that was unusual, you know, to bare your soul like that. I think that was what made it interesting. A lot of people could connect to that. And when they were listening to the music, they were also tapping their foot or on their feet or whatever.
Sure.
And by the time I left Bad English, I made a record called Temple Bar.
Right.
And that was when I think I was kind of, everything started again. Everything. I'd had 2 years of not making music, not recording, but I was writing.
Sure.
And that record, I couldn't do it again, I don't think. I couldn't make a record that all the songs were of that level. And well, I probably could if I had a couple of years to do it.
Right.
That's probably why I made an EP this time. It's just simpler. But Temple Bar was the beginning of something else that was so much more singer-songwriter. You know, to me, that was a whole beginning.
Sure. Do you, I don't want to say wish, but do you look back at your history, and I'm going specifically to the Babies for this for a second.
Yeah.
Do you look back at that and wish that the fans would have looked at the band as what it really was? Because I think personally, most people think that of the Babies as a pop rock band, and they did not see the depth of things like Darker Side of Town or Postcard or stuff like that. They just didn't know that depth. They knew what radio fed them, and I think it was like a massive misconception of what you guys were, both depth wise and rock wise. I mean, you guys had some really heavy rocking songs too.
Yeah, I know, but that was a charm for me. I love that.
Okay.
That you could go out there live and blow the place apart with like Back on My Feet Again,
Sure.
or Isn't It Time, or Midnight Rendezvous. But behind those songs was like my life. It was that it gave it substance, you know. If you look at the top 20, you're not really going to see songs that are where somebody really exposes their heart. Right. You have to generalize more. But back to what I said about writing lyrics, you don't patronize the audience. The audience can see you clearly. You're in a spotlight. But it's the way that you talk to people. It's like this conversation, you know. It's like you're open. Sure. And therein is the trick. That's the really great part about it. But I love the fact that we were that good and we didn't get on the cover of Rolling Stone. I just loved it. I love the fact that they didn't get it. You know, I was proud of that. I was sort of thumbing my nose at the music business, really. Sure.
Well, I know this. People that are fans of them and of you have always stayed there. You know, I would imagine your fan base that you made at the beginning, if they're still alive, they're still a fan, you know, which is an incredible sentiment to the music that you've created, because if it was just cookie cutter pop music, those fans would have long since gone on to somebody else.
That's true. We played a gig a couple of days ago in outside Kansas City, and it was open air, and place was packed with fans, and in the back there was these guys who were obviously in a band. They were young guys, you know, young, and they had like yellow hair, and you know they were dressed. And I was gauging the performance on them, and we killed it. We had a great gig, and at the end, we do a whole lot of Love as an encore, just so I can just scream through some blues.
Sure.
But we go in after that. We go into "Let Me Love You" by the Jeff Beck group.
Okay.
And as Tim, my bass player, was walking out, one of the guys walked up to him and says, "I spent half my life listening to Truth. I can't believe you did it tonight." And he was like walking tall when he told me. He was like, you know, that's what we came for.
Sure.
It's like the young kid was absolutely blown away. And the people in the front row that were waving T-shirts and the albums and baby stuff, Bad English stuff,
right,
they were having a ball as well. I think if you're trying to be a pop star at some point, you're naturally just going to run out of runway because you get older. If you're not an artist, then you will just be considered like people try and pigeonhole me in the 80s because of Missing You.
Right.
My 80s was guitar driven. I didn't have blue hair. I was sort of like still, when it was unpopular, making rock records. And the Babies had their lifespan in the 70s. We broke up in 1980.
Right.
So, you know, it's just a progression of your life. And it's important. I don't know why it's so important, but it means it's the reason I breathe, you know?
Sure.
No matter what is going on, I've always felt I was truthful. And if it was out of step and a record missed or the record company went bust or whatever it was, it never fazed me. I just, you know, it's not a career.
Right.
It's just what I do. So I don't, the slings and arrows, you know, of outrageous fortune, bring them on. I'll just write a song about it, you know?
Right on. Well, John, one thing that I have to say, and I'm, like I told you, I'm old. I'm feeling old these days at 53.
You're feeling old.
Yeah. I know. You've got a couple of years on me, but,
bro,
but I've got to say your voice still sounds amazing. And so many of your contemporaries that came up at the same time cannot say that. And I don't want to bash anybody specifically. I'm just saying in general, I see a lot of shows where I go out because I still love this music and I'll go out and see them. And I'm like, who am I looking at now? Because this doesn't sound like what I remember seeing 20 years ago. Yeah. What has been your secret to keep your voice in shape? Because you sang, even in the day, you didn't sing easy, like one octave stuff. I mean, you really were a kind of a screamer back then too.
Well, I roll my own cigarettes. You know, I never take it seriously. If my voice, I mean, I'm a better singer now than I was. And I feel bemused. I don't know why. But when like the gig the other night, I was really under the weather. I had COVID and I'm fighting back, and, you know, and I really felt like I just had no energy, and the people were there, and it was like that. And I turned around to them and I said, let's go. And we just hit it. And I had probably one of the best nights as a singer I've had in the last 10 years. Wow. And I have no idea where it comes from. But that kind of, it's confidence, really. I don't second guess myself. And even if your voice cracks, it's authentic, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, you do get singers that come out and it's like this big operatic bullshit, you know, and it's like, fuck off, you know, just fuck off. You know, go back to some fucking mirror and look at yourself singing. Right. I try to walk the walk on stage that I walk off stage. And, you know, I know that it's kind of soulful, but that's all I know. I know that you either bring it or you don't. And I wasn't kidding about rolling my own cigarettes. I still smoke like 4 cigarettes a day, and I roll my own. I did since I was a kid. I don't warm up. Okay. I mean, I swear to God, you know, I've enjoyed singing more in the last 5 years than I have in all my life. And you get wisdom. You get like an invisible kind of sense of where to go. It's confidence. It's like, give me the mic. Right. You know, it isn't like, how do you feel? Can you do it? It's like, give me the fucking mic and go
Right.
in, you know, and then it happens. You bring it. And if somebody's bought a ticket, then that's your part of the deal. And if they buy your record, you show up.
Right.
And you put on the best show you know how to.
Exactly. Well, man, you're getting ready to give a lot of people a great show this late summer, I guess, when you go out with Rick Springfield and Men at Work.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how this tour came up, and if you're surprised at how much what I'll call heritage or classic rock has maintained the test of time.
Yeah, it's weird. We did just last week, we did the Indy 500 with the Kings of Chaos,
Okay.
which is half of Guns N' Roses and a bunch of guest singers.
Right.
Rick Springfield was on before. He was doing this massive show, and then we took the stage and did this thing, and it was raining. But Rick, you know, Rick's a heart and soul guy. I was watching the show from the back, and he was going for it, you know?
Right.
And you look at it, and I got out of the van as he was like running up and down outside backstage, trying to key himself up, give him a hug and said, go and kill him, you know? And he did. He did. Not that I had anything to do with it, but he's on a mission, you know? But I think songs, you know, there's been a return to R&B in the last 10 years in popular music. And that's probably where the best songs are, you know, really. People with roots in African-American music or country put together, you know. And that's been a new thing. Like Adele, you know, great songs, great voice, great production. And it's melody. I think it's melody. It's like, if you listen to Bob Dylan's songs from his very early days, it's loaded with melody, but it's the most simple thing. It hasn't got that tag of singer-songwriter. It's not like, you know, it's very understated, and it kills you. And when you look at Bob's songs, he doesn't even have middle eights. You know, he just gets on with it. You know, it's like, how did he do that? Genius talent. But I think melody. I think people look back. Men at Work are on that tour. Yeah. Colin's got some great songs, and he's a funny guy, very entertaining. But I think it's going to be a really good night out, as we call it in England. Right. Yeah.
Certainly, man. Well, and you know, the other thing I think that helps, I guess, is kind of a weird word for this, but helps the classic stuff stay relevant is the fact that it's just kind of gone away. You know, the talent level. I don't want to say the talent level, but the ability to write this kind of music has just disappeared. And I think it has a lot to do by Guitar Hero and everything else. There's nobody out there in a garage learning how to play their instruments and learning how to write songs and learning how to fail in order to learn how to succeed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the world has changed so much that the internet has changed everything. You can access something by hitting a button. Whereas when I was learning to play the guitar, anything that was on plastic, like a 45 or an EP or an LP, you would go and knock on somebody's door and say, can I please listen to that? Or, you know, do you want to borrow this? And you know, and it was a search. You had to, Keith Richards said, you had to go looking for it. It wasn't, you weren't inundated by information from every different angle of different kinds of music. There was only we loved all sorts of music, country, blues, soul music, folk was big, you know. But now I think the kids are different. They're interested in different things. They're satisfied easily. And that really run-down, broken 6-string guitar that used to mean so much to a 13-year-old, the kid doesn't need it, you know. Right. And he can make music with, you know, with his computer. And I think a lot of people make music now as a pastime. Whereas maybe when I was a kid, it was life and death. I mean, when I heard Jimi Hendrix for the first time, I just knew what that was. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And Hendrix was blues, country, soul, God knows what, everything. The music of the planets, the spheres. where did that come from? And then you got John Lennon and Paul McCartney, you got Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, you got Pete Townsend, who's like a poet extraordinary, you know, extraordinaire. And there's Bob Dylan. But the world has changed now. And I think the internet hasn't helped with
I agree.
You know, and it's a profound thing now. We're going to have to deal with it. And it might be why there's so much trouble in the world and violence. But we've been given something that's like the genie, and you can't get it back in the bottle. But we'll come through it somehow. But you can't really equate today's music by music that happened 50 years ago.
True. No, I agree. You know, the one thing that I do think, though, that kids, and I have kids that are like 30 now, so I've watched it happen.
Yeah.
The lack of a physical product, I think, has made a huge difference. Just because you know, as a fan, I mean, I'm a failed drummer. I couldn't play for shit, but I loved music. I loved it. Had, like so many of us, I had just tables full of albums. Yeah. And every time we bought an album or something, or, you know, First Bad English, I'll throw as an example. I remember getting the cassette of the First Bad English. First thing I did, opened it up. It was like a 4 or 5 fold cassette. Yeah. Reading every word. Oh, look, here's John Waite. Here's Neil Sean. Here's this producer. Here's this, you know, all this information. And as a fan, we absorbed that. As a fan, we felt part of it because you guys gave us that much to know outside of the music. I think now, you know, what do you see? You see an album cover, and that's usually it, unless you have to go and research it on Wikipedia or something in order to connect to a record.
Well, there's something, you know, I mean, you talk about like music itself and its effect, but that tactile thing that happens where you actually pick up an album that's 12 inches square, and you can smell the plastic, and you can smell the ink on the cover, and you're looking at the photography and who took the picture and where it was recorded, and it's a huge thing. And then you go home with it under your arm, and you know, when I was at art school, we'd come in with different records because we could play records when we were painting and stuff, but we'd be talking about the music on about 15 different levels. And when the band was coming to town, you know, we'd just go and see them, and it was like a religious experience. But now, like I said about the internet, it's like you put out a record now, and everybody goes like, "Fuck yeah, that's really great. This is a great record," and it's gone in a week. You know, and in the old days, there'd be a first single and a second single, and you know, maybe even a third single, and it would keep the life of the music going. And people didn't expect another record in the next month. It was like a once in a year thing. It was a really big thing in our lives. Sure. But when you can just go and stream music and you know, delete music, and there's more to music than that between the artist and the audience. Right. You know, there's something that's an exchange, which we can't really put our fingers on unless we simplify it and say it's a conversation from one man to the audience, or one woman, but it's a conversation, and it's a two-sided conversation. You know, there are people that are moved by what you've written, and you can see it on their faces when you're singing these songs, singing along with you. How cool is that, you know? Exactly. And I think the way things are going, most of the bands out there don't have the original members, or have like one guy left, you know? Right. And pretty soon they're going to have like a film of it or a hologram or something, and they're going to just send that out, and you can download it and watch it at home, and the music will be from the record, and it'll be product, you know, and it will probably kill the remaining art that we need to get through every day. Art is so serious, man. It's not short for Arthur. It's art. I agree, man. Definitely do. Well, you mentioned this, and I'm just going to play off it a little bit, you know, with bands that are kind of severed, and you know, they continue on, but it's not the lineup. Obviously, there's a version of the Babies that's out there with Tony and Wally playing, and I know as a fan, I would love to see you jump on stage, whether it was for one show or one tour or one whatever. And I know that's kind of just not been the way it goes, but is there ever going to be a chance, even if it was just a one-off for the fans, that you would
consider getting on stage with those guys and maybe pulling Jonathan back into it or whatever, and doing anything as the Babies?
Wow. Do you know what? When I left the Babies, I'd given absolutely everything I had to it. I really had. I was kind of like, I weighed about 100 pounds. I was working 7 nights a week on the songs or on tour or whatever. And when it finished, for me, it's like divorce. You know, it isn't, there's no ill feeling. There's none of that, like you said and I said, and I'll never speak to you. It was like, I love you, just have a great life, but I can't give you any more. I'm really done. I just exhausted. It isn't like Pete Townsend says he doesn't do fucking requests. Somebody shouted, apparently yesterday, Pete Townsend was playing somewhere with The Who, and somebody shouted, like, play this. And he said, we don't do fucking requests. Right. And he also said in the past, we don't do encores. You know, if you think we haven't given you 100%, fuck you. Right. And he's very acerbic, you know. But just, I'm saying that when I parted company, there was anything angry or Jonathan joined Journey. It was just a, you know, he was sitting on telling everybody in the world, but he'd already joined. It was the end, you know. And in answer to your question, no. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, and you know what? In a way, John, one of the best things that you can do is actually do that, because it leaves the it leaves the mystery, it leaves the specter of this is what that was. There's no way that, I mean, let's just throw an example, a bad example, but if you were to agree to do a one-off and you didn't have it vocally, that's the last piece of legacy that you leave. And it's like, no, you know, that's not what you want to do.
Well, you know, there's music you make as a young man. We still do Midnight Rendezvous, Back on My Feet Again. We did Every Time I Think of You the other night. I owe it to the audience to play, and I love those songs, and they're great and head first. But mixed in with those songs is what happened to me afterwards, you know, and the bigger songs. That was just staggering, you know. But I do believe that. I think I don't want to see something that was so potent and of its time and maybe ahead of its time marketed. Like, you know, the oldest thing. That isn't what I do. I never done that. And I think going backwards, I find it embarrassing, you know. I mean, we're all getting older, man, but it's like, you know, there's a beauty to just leaving something where it is, you know, and saying that was it. And it ended like that. And it's a beautiful story. It was tough and it was hard and a lot of heartache. And a lot of wonderful things happened, but it's like a book. You don't like pick up Moby Dick and then write what happens to the crew, or Ishmael, you know, Ishmael drifted back into, you know, Japan or whatever, and started a life as a tailor. It's like, no, he didn't, you know, it's not the point of the book. It's done. And I find great beauty in that. I really do.
Fair enough, man. Well, John, obviously you have you have this great new EP called Anything that is out there, and you are going to be out on tour, you know, later in the summer for pretty much the end of the summer. So tell people where we should send them to keep up with you and keep up with tour dates, get the record, all that stuff.
Well, I'm on Facebook, and I answer emails as much as I can, and there's a lot of photographs and a lot of information, and we post the gigs. Get on Facebook, maybe we'll have a chat. But the official website is johnwaiteworldwide.com. You can get signed EPs, T-shirts, artwork. You know, you can actually get, hang on, like, let's have a look. This is the original for the Wooden Heart album that came out last year. But you can buy original artwork that I do. And what was the question? I'm rambling.
Just where people can go.
Yeah,
you pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to buy anything, you can get it there, or you can go to Target. It's distributed in America. You can find it in a lot of record stores. I have a distributor, so it's not like it's just for the internet. And of course, you can come to the shows and get it, T-shirts, anything. But I'm out there. Just you know, if you reach out, I reach back.
Very good, man. Well, one more time, the new EP is called Anything. It is John Waite. And John, thanks so much for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
Hey, I know we rambled a bit, but I enjoyed it. I thought we got right down to it.
Absolutely.
That was a really good interview.
Thanks,
you did very well. You did very well.
Well, I've done a few of these. I've done as many interviews as you've done shows. So
it shows. It actually shows. They were good questions, man.
Thanks.
Hey guys, my name's Scott Bowling. I have a YouTube show called Good Company with Bowling.
What's up? This is Clint Lowry from Seven Dust.
Hey, what's up? This is Sonny Mayo.
Hey, Ricky Rackman.
And you're watching Good Company with Scott Bowling.
I've interviewed bands like Limp Bizkit, Fozzy, Seven Dust, Korn. I've had Chris Farley's brother, Tom Farley, on the show. My show is kind of like a modern day Wayne's World. If you love a good interview, a good rock interview, or just any kind of interview, please, if you get a chance, check out my show, Good Company with Bowling.